Hey, good now, everybody. Welcome to this Talder Discord exclusive Q&A with the one and only Jess Sutton, one of the two reasons our amazing community exists.
We all know her as playing our beloved Tally. Some of you may also know her from the movie Rogue, but she's also a producer and writer.
She is a proud South African, a lovable nerd, and an amazing, caring human being who is currently raising money for the Smiling One Foundation through her charity campaign Smiles for Change.
Woo! I'm live! Sup, witches? How do I see gallery? There is no gallery, but we have all the beautiful faces. You may be able to go down into the participation part of the webinar, and then you can actually see a list of names, but you won't be able to see faces. Okay. Okay. Well, that's what I'm wearing. For you guys. Woo! And Scylla's belt, which is just a little, have to have some necro on me too. There we go. Making sure to cover all of the bases for the witches. Oh yes, I came prepared. Sorry to disappoint the somebody said it's a horse sweater. No, it is not. I did not purchase that sweater. Nope. Very triggering. Very triggering. So it's a horse sweater or is it a unicorn sweater? Okay, I would say it's a unicorn. Everyone else would call it a horse, but I swear there was a very questionable ear, so I say it's a unicorn sweater. Okay. So we can just start calling it the unicorn sweater instead of the horse sweater, I guess. We'll just switch that up in fandom. As if it needs to be cuter than a horse sweater. Just, I don't know. I blame Tracy Bolton. Brilliant
woman, but she insisted that I be cute as well as sophisticated this season.
Okay. Well, I think we can all agree that that was somewhat successful.
Are you making me blush? Thank you.
All right. So we have a whole bunch of questions from the Talder Discord, which we had a lovely introduction from Mira and Arthos, who are also generals of the Talder Discord. And everyone here has either joined the Talder Discord or is part of the Bat Cave on Discord, which I believe you've now been into both.
I have. Awesome. Can I just insert and say what an honor it is to be here right now, sharing this space with you. I feel really, really grateful to be a part of this community. And in particular, the Talder Discord, because for both Lynn and I think I can speak for both of us when we say we've felt seen in a different way, and it's always beautiful. I mean, the way that we love to work our craft is always in what is implied and what is not said, that we find so alluring as artists and so sexy as people. And you know, to find somebody as amazing as she is for a scene partner, and then to find an audience who recognizes our chemistry and highlights it has been so cool. So you know, we've just been backing you guys, really. Like I just feel like all the love is in this visibility, and I can't wait to dive into some beautiful conversations.
Wonderful. Well, let me just say on behalf of the Talder Discord, thank you for the representation and for supporting us. All of us wouldn't be here, obviously, without, we all saw something between Tally and Alder that fascinated us and drew us in and brought us into the community that we have now. And your unending support and willingness to talk with us and admit that you see something there is very rare for us in fandom. So thank you from us to you on that.
Well, I just feel like the luckiest person, really, I do. And a lot of that Tally and Alder has to do with also how Lynn and Jess feel about each other, which has become more apparent and probably more explicit to both of us, because we really dig one another as people, as artists. And she's been somebody so fundamental in my life in the last 4 years. But we can go in more in depth about that as we go.
Well, we'd love that.
I couldn't help. There was a blur between like life imitating art, being Jess speaking to Lynn and Tally speaking to Alder. They started to be a lot of lines blurred. And I also think Lynn and I fully embraced that, because a lot of the questions that were coming up as Tally and Sarah were the questions that Lynn and Jess were grappling with. So that also became like a whole crazy, like stranger than fiction thing. So yeah, we were always gunning to be like, what is our next scene together? Where are we going? And I think that overall, the writers, Elliot, they all felt it, and it was no accident that we ended up being written into all these rooms and spaces together.
Right.
We were like mainly staring at each other from across rooms and just like breathing heavy. I was like, what is happening? But
well,
yeah,
I guess it's
season
Go
two
ahead.
was all Sarah. It was all about Sarah Alder's past and the secrets that she was keeping. And then season 3 just saw us saw a very different Sarah. That was always going to be the question mark for Lynn, like how she was going to bring a different Alder into as like this mother mycelium avatar. It was really cool. I mean, it was so cool that she got to kind of create a whole different doorway in. And she kept a lot of it a secret. Like she kept everyone thinking, okay, what is it going to be? But I do remember her one note going, she wants to bring a sense of levity and a sense of humor that we didn't get to see of Alder. He was so straight-laced. And as the mother, she could really be more mercurial and strange.
Strange indeed. I think a lot of us caught on to the difference, particularly in season 3 with Alder's character. Many of us were fascinated by the changes and embraced them, while others were very worried about what that might mean as we moved forward. But thank you. I mean, there's really nothing else to say beyond that in regards to the performances that you both gave, and to the writers who decided, we're going to go with this because of the chemistry. And I feel like that's wonderful. And it feels like it was a wonderful opportunity for you and Lynn to play with that as well.
Yeah. I mean, we were really fighting hard for that kiss because we felt that it had been earned. Like come season 3, it really did feel like it was earned. And I wanted to, they were like concerned about how it might overshadow certain other narratives. And I understood where that was coming from, because I think the implicit, the subtlety, the delicate relationship that we had been building in 3 seasons was all around mentorship. And I thought that was, we had to honor that path. And so I understood why they wanted to keep it like neat. But I still pushed the boundary just by asking. Lynn wanted to bring back the face stroke from Ep 8 in season 2. And we got that. We got that right outside the manor just before she leaves me, and she embraces me and she asks me to trust the mother. And that was like,
paying homage.
That scene was such a beautiful moment for Lynn and I, that we thought, okay, maybe there'll be a little bit more wiggle room. And then I wanted to plant a smooch on her as the ice witch in Ep 8.
Okay.
Because she had to get all worked up about, as Tally was being consumed by the ice witch, I was having to try and go in between, like, the ice witch looking at Lynn compared to Tally looking at Lynn, and as the ice witch, I was gonna kind of fuck with her more, and return some of the favors, and just kind of she was like forehead to forehead on me, and I was just like, we're basically spitting into each other's mouths at this point. I can't be any closer to you. I'm just gonna just smush our faces together. And I thought it would be really cool, like a really great catalyst for her to then pull back and like grab the sword and then like hack the arm off.
It certainly was a very,
but it was not
interesting scene.
It was not meant to be. So it just was like the 3 days that Lynn and I spent shooting the Ice Cave was like the best of season 3 for me, just because of all the chaos and the storm that we went through shooting off and on screen. There was just that silence of 3 days of stillness with Jem in a studio, and we got to shoot in chronological order, and it just felt, it felt intense and intimate, and we didn't have to go and change and hop around locations. We could just be in one place and it all be about the performance. And also it felt really like a full circle for the characters of Tally and Alder. Like, I know we want the happy ending, and I want to talk to you guys about the happy ending, right? I do, because I'm fascinated by why there is an uproar, and even in me, right? Like I watch something and I'm like gunning for a couple to be together or to find happiness or to find some respite, and be like, okay, like the rest of the world, leave them alone.
Right.
It makes me angry, it makes me upset, but I do look at those feelings and be like, oh, that's really interesting, because so much of life is open-ended. There is no like bow tie of, and they live happily ever after. And it's interesting that we still uphold that kind of, I don't know, American dream tale. I don't know. It's just, it's just fascinating, especially even in a relationship like Tally and Alder, which is so, it's not conventional. And
no, I would definitely say it's a little bit
you know,
unconventional, and that can be a good thing.
It's a good thing. I really like going out of my comfort zone, having conversations that are in the deep end. You can keep your shallow end. I'm here for like also looking at two characters, especially Alder's characters, really deeply questionable. And then you have like an almost younger version of her. But Lynn and I were speaking about that in depth, about how they were each other's mirrors, and how you were also looking at a younger and older self. While they were still their own people, they're still individuals making their own choices, there was a lot of parallels. There was a lot more in common than not. And how Alder was presented at first was just like a fortress of a woman who would not, her guards, her walls were so high. It was just impenetrable. You know, you're not seeing one crack. But with Tally, she revealed something else of herself that she did not with other people. And I thought that was really interesting. And Lynn was saying how, you know, in our scenes, that there was such an openness to Tally that it disarms someone. And you kind of start realizing how when you're with somebody who puts their judgment aside and they're stepping into the threshold of just asking questions and wanting to understand and wanting to have a conversation, how your character has to, it shifts into something way more intimate and way more intense. And I remember, you know, Lynn, the first season in particular, Alder's responses were so restrained. There was so much restraint behind them. You were like, what are you like? You could feel all the back up of the things that she was just not saying. Right? But her eyes are like saying everything. And with Lynn, that's the power of, you know, of the power of presence that she is, and that she inherently endows in her characters. Like when you're acting opposite her, there is so much life behind her eyes, that if you dare just die into the moment with her, because that's also how she is as an actor, is, you know, this is the moment and it's just about the connection, and all the preparation that you've done prior to getting ready for the scene, you just drop at the front door and you walk through, and you lose time there. And
Oh,
then
of course.
you kind of come out and you're like, what happened? What did we get the shot? Did we not? And
You just get lost in it. That's that actually leads into a really good segue, if you don't mind me.
please drive.
Okay, so we actually have a question from someone in the audience that has something to do with scenes between Tally and Alder.
Yes.
Caden.
Hi, Caden.
So we are going to unmute Caden to ask their question.
Okay.
Caden, you're up.
Hello.
Hello.
That's me. Can you hear me?
I can.
Amazing. Hi, Jess.
Hi.
My question isn't actually specifically about Tally and Alder scenes. It was more about the show in general, and what scene was your favorite to film? And then also, which one was the most difficult? Like, it could be mentally, emotionally, physically, however you choose to interpret that.
I would say, the most difficult. Okay, so interesting, because I think maybe, so the ice cave was definitely my favorite scenes to shoot. The set was like incredible. And it was just that moment of stillness in the storm. So from all of the reasons, like not just the scenes that we were shooting and how beautiful and challenging they were, the Ice Witch voice in particular scared me. And this isn't something that actually is revealed much in the scene that you guys see, because they have the dub over of a voice, which I didn't know that they were going to do. I thought I was going to definitely have a lot more pressure riding on the natural cadence and resonance and whatever voice I decided to lean into. So I felt an immense responsibility to bring a new voice to the table. And it was quite awkward because I had to have my head back, and they had propped Francisca's hand so that, you know, there was always that contact. And I had to stand close enough to her, but close enough to Lynn. And it was a tough balance between being still and being able to feel like something was taking me over and possessing me from the inside, like slowly being frozen. That was challenging. I was scared, but in the best way, like cutting my teeth against something that, like becoming a biddy. I had the idea. I had some time to find the voice, the older voice, and how to like breathe into one's belly to kind of lower the cadence and to bring heaviness to the body, which the elderly do carry. And then I had to go to wardrobe, and it was weird because they hadn't considered changing my body. It was really just the prosthetic tests, of which we had 3. I was allergic to the first adhesive. They had like 6 pieces on me, and I just felt like totally claustrophobic, and I couldn't breathe, and it was really terrible. And then the bitty wig was so heavy, and there was a whole lot of tests that went down just to physically get the face to a place where everyone was happy with it, and I could also wear and act through it. But then I was going, well, no, like you can't have like my 27-year-old body wearing this mask. Like that's gonna look really weird, and we're not. And you know, in the reason why it wasn't thought of was because in the fuselage at the very end of season 1, when I get changed into the biddy, I'm immediately kind of hunched over and carried to the helicopter by Ray and Abby. And then I'm basically seated. You don't see much of my body. You're just seeing my face kind of stick out of the fuselage, screaming for them while they're blow up into this witch bomb.
Right. First time we see that witch bomb.
it was then rolling into season 2 where I'm like, oh, we're gonna be living as the Biddy, like walking around, sitting. I have to figure out her whole body and her whole way of being. So they built me a Biddy body of stockings and stuffings, and it was great. That really was a big end. So I've been so lucky as a film actor. You would think that this would only be in the theatrical world of acting, where you get to really take on a transformational role like this, where you can go and age like 30, 40 years and portray a possessive eye switched voice, like some kind of exorcist film. It was just really cool to be challenged that much. So I do think I came from both points, both the challenge, but also just the containment of those 3 days. And then the closure with Tally and Alder and it coming full circle. I mean, the lines that we got to say to each other were like vows. Like that was our wedding. I really felt that whole, like, what good is my sight when there's nothing to look forward to, and maybe it's going to be good for me to see what's right in front of me for a change. And we did 2 alts of that line, and I can't remember which one made it into the cut.
I believe the one you just said did.
Jem wanted it to be more like implied that I was speaking to her, like she was right in front of me. And then the alt was it being more about the world being right in front of me and giving up knowledge for faith.
Okay.
As the greater conversation of the story versus Tally's individual arc. There's always, because she can step into both worlds. That's the beauty of Tally's character and arc. It's like she's the sticky thing that holds together a lot of the story as it progresses forward. Her sight is it
certainly helped.
It's very vague and then specific, and then you start realizing it's all like crumbs, leading to a greater picture. So I was always juggling, is this Tally's individual crisis, or is this now her just being involved in the larger crisis of the story? And those 2 hats were also just a joy to wear. I mean,
well, that's good.
And then playing
it was certainly
this compassionate, who's like, who really has to connect deeply with everyone that she is in a room with, was such a happy challenge for me, because I saw a lot of the comments was like, Tally's a ship unto herself, and I love that. Like that was so much about what I was also trying to step into, was the sense of leadership being that you lead from yourself and that you are whole, like you don't need another to make you complete.
Well, that makes one, yes, like why being single can be good.
What's wrong with being single?
There's nothing wrong with being single. More power to that.
Lynn always says, she's like, I am the man of my dreams, like, and I mean, when the first time she said it, I was like, that is so hot. Like, I cannot tell you that you said that. There is something so like mesmeric about somebody who is self-possessed. And by that, I mean, you know yourself, you're so okay with yourself, and your worth, your self-respect, your self-trust, that you're not needy and needing of someone else to instill in you some value of self or purpose, that they don't become your worth. I think a lot of Hollywood, a lot of how relationships are betrayed can lean more into the codependency, and I think that's interesting. Like, I'm going, okay, is that something? I wonder where that comes from. But then again, I was so much raised as with like the Disney version of like knight in shining armor and, you know, the princess getting rescued. And I'm just like, can I rescue myself? It was only until really Shrek, like, you know, that those kinds of stories were coming out where I was starting to challenge how was I leaning into playing the victim in my life over and giving up my power, like asking for things that I could get for myself, putting decisions into other people's hands that I could have just made on my own.
Right.
And there's a level of ownership and responsibility and accountability that Lynn and Demetria and Amanda Tapping, they speak into and have really guided me into understanding that that's where the gold is. Like the goal at the end of the rainbow, right? It's not fictitious, it's real, but you've got to come home to yourself, and you've got to find a way to walk yourself home to that.
Well, that kind of leads into, I have another question from Flying Bluebirds about what is your acting process and diving into Tally's character. So I might just give them the mic to ask this of you.
Hi, I think I'm
Hi.
unmuted now. Hi. So my question is, I'm actually interested in how you tackle Tally's character from an acting perspective. So I was wondering, was there any sort of outside inspiration, like other people, fictional, not, or whatever, music or literature that influenced the way you portrayed her and that helped you like get into character?
Yes. A lot of it came from Eliot's background notes. The book that found me prior to even auditioning for Tally was Witches by Erica Young, which I speak a lot of in previous interviews, but it was such a synchrodestiny moment that I happened to be reading a book about witches and then getting a show that was exploring a whole different portrayal of the witch as a symbol. And then it happened to be that Eliot's mother had given him that book when he was a kid, and that actually had instigated what would become Motherland. That book had such a space in his heart. And I happened to be reading it the month that I was auditioning for Motherland. And so when we were sharing and talking about, you know, the symbol of the witch, and I brought up that book, and then he was like, this is crazy. This is absolutely insane, that we have this in common. I was like, okay, well, this clearly is this is an important book to keep close. And that book really is a beautiful composition of poetry and images and texts about the witch and where it originated in history. It's beautiful, it's powerful. So that was something that I kept close to me. And I work a lot with music from an emotional point of view. I tend to work like in a scaffolding out. Some actors work outside in, but it's different per character. I like to keep my process very organic and flowy. And I find that music always brings me into a place of play. But it's yeah, I don't know, I just make albums. Basically, I've been actually meaning to share my season 1, season 2, season 3 playlist on Spotify, which has been some of my precious, like if you ask me what's most like important thing on my phone, it's not my contacts, it's my music.
I think a lot of us can relate to that.
So I mean, outside of like reading the script and learning lines, which there's nothing to that but just hard work and practice. Accent wise, I got the most incredible support thanks to Amy Walker, who's the most amazing accent coach, and whose YouTube tutorials were put on Standard American was put on free. That was the only resource that I had as a South African in South Africa to start honing any accent skills. And then getting to work with her in season 3 was like I was meeting a rock star. I was so uncool and so undone. I was like, oh my gosh. And she was everything. And she is a witch in in her life. She's somebody who is so connected to the material in a whole different way. And then there's Deb Podowski, my acting coach, who I always, if I can afford to work with a coach, accent or acting, I would choose both, because there is a lot of facilitation. It's really helpful to have somebody outside who can kind of nudge you into the places that you might not see. There's blind spots for everyone. And I always loved working with Deb, because she somehow just always manages to see me in such a way where she can tell if I'm copping out or if I'm half-assing a scene. And she's like, what is that? You know, let's go deeper. So she's never letting me off the hook, and she's always kind of just moving the goalposts. So yeah, that's just some of my process. And then it's really just connection and with my co-star at the time. For Lynn, that meant us not running any lines together and just being totally fresh and ready when those cameras were turned on. That's how she liked to work. And I understood what that meant to us, because we couldn't get in each other's way. We had no anticipation. We were both like on the edge of our seats going, I wonder what you're going to bring, and I wonder what you're going to do. But for Tay and Ash and myself, we would always connect by holding hands and looking into each other's eyes before, just to drop in. But a three-hander is very different from a two-hander. When you're playing with three people, you've got to be very super tight on those cues, otherwise the ball drops, and you can actually energetically feel it
happen. Now, speaking of the unit, we have a question from Simone, Smiling One. You actually know her from the Smiling One.
Yes.
And the Smiles for Change campaign. We are going to be trying to unmute so that she can ask you her question.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Well, my question is, we all know that the unit are sisters, but who would you say is the big, middle, and little sister of the unit?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I guess from what Elliot told me, he wanted Tally to be the youngest.
Yeah.
Ray would probably be middle kid, and Abby would be the oldest. Like, I feel like there's something there. That would be my guess. But I also love the dynamic of the unit because they switch. And I know this to be true in my own personal life with my brother. We're very, very close, very, very different. And we're constantly switching. Like, he is 2.5 years younger than me, but he can also he's very sage-like, and he can be beyond his years when he sees me. And if there's any time that I'm feeling really insecure, I go to my little brother, and but I don't think of him like that. In fact, I've never really seen age like that with my friends or family, which actually also fascinates me. But yeah, the younger, I mean, they're all supposed to kind of be the same age, but I do feel like Abigail assumes the icebreaker role, which is atypical, A-type of the firstborn. Ray is the one that gets away with the lot. And I feel like, but she's also got a chip on her shoulder, which makes me feel like the second-born, kind of squeezed between. And she's the only child. I don't know. Yeah, middle child. And then Tally being like the laat lammetjie, which is an Afrikaans term for the last born. And I think, yeah, the most free, right? She just wants to play with everyone. She just wants to have a seat at the table and be taken seriously like all the other grown-ups. But she always stands in a beautiful place of enthusiasm and admiration. And the admiration and the respect that she always gives other people make me feel like she's very young at heart in that way. Yeah.
Right. Now, you have been speaking a bit about Elliot. So we have a question from Gwenny, who has a particular question about that.
Okay, Wenny.
Hi,
Hi,
can you hear me? Yes.
I can.
I'm so glad to be here. Okay, sorry.
Same.
You said it in an interview that you can try but never guess what Elliot has prepared for you. Did you have any like theory that's happened to be true, or even a theory that was very far from what actually happened?
Sorry, I lost you there. Can you repeat your question?
Yes. You said in an interview that you can try but never guess what Elliot has prepared for you. Did you have any like theory that happened to be true, or even a theory that was very far from what actually happened?
Yeah, I think I tried to come up with the theory the first season, and then I pretty much gave up. I knew better, because his mind, it's a genius mind. So I expected to be surprised. That's what I came to understand when it comes to working with him, was just like, you're very much going to go down a garden path that you did not see coming. However, I was told that, oh, do I say this? Okay. I begged him for some greater insight. He did tell me 3 days into shooting the pilot that Tally was going to be a biddy. So I knew that going into shooting season 1, and that really was helpful. It was just that one little breadcrumb that I had, but I could already see that she made the ultimate sacrifice, and that already told me that she didn't sacrifice her heart. She kept it open to the world. It didn't matter how betrayed or hurt she felt, or how lost she felt in this world that her mother was trying to so desperately keep her from. I needed that direction. But in terms of the theory of season 2, didn't see any of that coming. Didn't get any kind of heads up, although Brian did tell us it was going to be a nightmarish world, and that was going to kind of be parallel to the world that I was very much feeling inside. From an emotional point of view, having to immigrate in a pandemic was like the long dark night of the soul, and Tally happened to be going through one herself, which I loved. And then season 3, there was an interesting little bit of information given to me, and that was that Tally was going to end up being the general of the army, and that was never shown in season 3. But I thought it was such a it was a powerful note, because I guess we see this girl going from like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, rah unity, to going into very dark waters, questioning her purpose, taking on authority like no one's business, kind of deconstructing and derailing the status quo, to then become a fugitive and be free falling into evolution, basically, into like, okay, now the whole world has to change, and the worlds of these characters, to then end on a note which wasn't an ending. It was more just life past the page, like life past what was written, that Tally's future was somehow to take on the role of the general and the army was going to become, maybe, now that the world was witches, it's different. I just loved that idea of going, okay, she's going to go back to the place where she always felt called to. Like, she's the poster girl for the army. And I think part of my love for that she comes back and she assumes the role of the general was always like her draw to General Alder as a character, and her seeing an older version of herself is very powerful. So I didn't have theories, but I was given some breadcrumbs that really helped me, I guess, create my own path as I was feeling my way through shooting. Yeah, but fascinating question. Yeah, I don't know if I answered it, but I do. Yeah, there's something gray there. It's like I didn't have a theory, but I definitely made my own way given the little guideposts that I was allowed to have.
Well, it certainly makes sense, especially in season 1 with the foreshadowing of Tally becoming a biddy when they are in the museum and she talks about their bravery.
The reverence. Oh, I love that scene. That was the first scene that was the first time I got to work with Amanda Tapping.
Oh, all right.
He was just our episodic director at that point, but then would later assume the role of producing director and executive producer on season 2 and 3. Yeah.
All right. Well, that kind of brings us to another question from Joe about Tally in particular and moving forward with what might come for her.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Basically, piggybacking off of what you said, Tally's got her side back now. So in the same vein, like outside of what Elliot said about Tally being general, where do you think Tally and her unit would end up? 5
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like Scylla and her would go back. Scylla and Ray would go back to probably like living in a session. I would feel like that would be that would be something that they would choose. Something about the Dodger community meets the session. I don't know how that story would unfold, but I always pictured them being really happy there. And then as for Abby and Adele, I was so inspired by Abigail's speech to the cadets when she's just like, you're part, like how she has also divorced herself from the legacy. It's not like she's left down the legacy of the bellwether. She's just kind of, I feel like she superseded it because she again stepped into that self-possession. She's her own person and she's not living for her mother and she's not living for her ancestors approval. She's not having to carry that feeling like she needs to prove anything to anyone, that chip on her shoulder, which we saw so obviously in season 1. Her character journey is so beautiful because she starts to realize that she can be all of who she is and lead from a place of authenticity and still be such a brilliant leader. So I always felt like Adele and her would go on to, I don't know, be either like a witches UN, I don't know, something like in politics, bit of new leadership and a way of uniting the witches of the world. Yeah, like a UN. And then Tally, I would just go, that really took me by surprise because I was just like, I did not see. But then in some ways it does make sense. Her going back and being a general under Petra, right? She would have to, and I always thought, out of all the mentors that Tally probably would choose, I think Petra would be somebody. Like we saw a little bit of that allyship coming into season 2. I thought that would always be a really cool duo. So yeah, I kind of play with that a bit, but yeah, she would create an army, maybe the army that she wanted to be a part of. That in some ways Sarah Alder's army was flawed. There was a lot of shit and secrets, and that stuff had to come out. And I honestly believe that scene between Tally and Alder in Ep 9 in season 2 was a watershed moment for both of them. I don't think Tally expected the consequences to be that Sarah was going to strip herself of her badges and be dishonorably discharged. What she wanted was accountability and ownership. What she got was seeing the human, right? And she suddenly understood why this human had made the choices that she made, and suddenly how also it exposed the whole system in a way. I don't know, it was quite telling for me how Tally had an idea of what she wanted in a general. And then I honestly believe that when Sarah finally admitted to everything, that was the general that she was waiting for. And she was like, yeah, okay, this would be the person that I would give my life for again, you know. Not that she hadn't given her, you know, her life, her youth. But yeah, there's something about that I kind of feel that Tally has somehow been unconsciously conditioned to be a general. Like she's been wanting to know how to lead her life and be a leader for other people.
Well, I think we can use one of the gifts that we often use, or GIFs as people might call them, in the Talder Discord, which is we would follow you anywhere.
Yes. Yes. I love that line. I think that was my favorite line of season 1. That and is it shiny? It was such a delight to say.
Well,
And,
this, I mean, we have one for that too. I think we have a lot of them that you'll eventually see now that you've joined the Talder Discord in the Bat Cave. There are plenty to be seen.
I'm in the inner circle now. I'm so proud to be here. It's awesome. What's your favorite line of season 2? I want to know. I don't think
mine or someone else's. We can pick a random person.
Let's open it to the floor. I'm trying to think now. I don't feel like I had. I just did a lot of screaming and a lot of crying in season 2. That's what I know. I felt like I cried and screamed every single day.
Okay, that had to be rough for you, like as an actress, emotionally.
It was quite cathartic though as well, because I was feeling really disturbed, feeling quite like just exquisitely isolated in the pandemic, but very grateful to work, but in a new country that I had no roots in, feeling very alienated without my culture and my community, and not being able to go and hang out with people, not being able to go and make a new community. And it was just all high risks, and it was a lot at stake. That's what it felt like every day. It felt like there was life and death kind of feeling to it. Hard not to slip into despair and dark thoughts then. And I think Tally's journey was very much the same. Like the unit, we barely got to see them together, you know. Again,
everyone was very separated.
It was a lot of Lynn and I in rooms breathing together, distance apart, and then Nicta's character being introduced. That was also really interesting because previously they were going to be ex-lovers.
Yes, which we learned at QFX during a couple interviews there.
Which I thought was interesting. You know, it's really great that, you know, even if that goes off the table, you know, if the writers then decide to change their mind, I think that there's a part of a residue that sticks with an actor that goes, that's a really interesting nuance that I don't have to make explicit, but I could play with it implicitly, especially in a land like Motherland where sex is, it's really questioning the taboo of how we talk about sex. And
Or the
And
need to talk about it at all.
Exactly. Right? You point to it, and by pointing to it, you already are like taking the power away. You know, there's something, I think you treat your audience like they're smart as a whip. And I really believe that they are. Like most audiences, I personally, as an audience member, love to piece together a story myself. I don't want to be spoon fed, and I want to have the satisfaction of earning okay, but I don't want it to be revealed. I don't want to see it coming, you know. That's just personally what I find really satisfying. When I'm reading a script and I'm, you know, as a storyteller, I'm just looking at how the story is put together. I'm looking for nuance. I'm looking for like characters who are questionable. I don't want them to be tied up as like the bad guy or I always love the complexity of what it is to be human. You know, we are so many things. We're walking contradictions all the time. And I think we do a disservice when we're portraying the villain as like the bad guy. You know, it's like, okay, they're doing bad things,
but what drove them?
Yeah, you want to understand the motives, and you want to understand, because that's how you can relate. And I think if anything, what's the point of story if not to take us on a journey, an introspective journey, where we can step out of ourselves and step out of our lives and just have a respite to go and expand into our empathy and understanding of things, to better come back into our lives and go, wow, we have a different perspective of our privilege or our position or our status or our pain, whatever it is. It's an orientation. I think that's the power of story, I believe, in any case.
Well, we have a question from Mira that kind of aligns with stories that you're interested in telling.
Oh, so many.
Is Mira around to speak?
Hi. Yes. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm a big fan of another work of yours, Rogue. And your character in Rogue was very different from Tally. And yet I can kind of see in both character arcs this development of inner strength. Is that a quality that, you know, is that a quality that you look for in characters that you choose? Is that something that you are inspired by?
Sure, I'm not there yet. I would love to be. I think life selects for us better than we could select for ourselves. I wouldn't have selected either Tally or, oh my gosh, what is my character's name in Rogue? I just totally forgot her name. Whoops. But you're so right, by that common ground as being that, yeah, finding inner strength. I think I get cast in those roles, which is interesting. And I think something inherently in me is always seeking that. Jess is seeking that. So one of my acting coaches always says that on camera, everyone reads, there's like a texture almost to somebody's presence. And we can't deny that. We can't hide it. Some people describe it as like there's like a warmth to their presence or there's a coldness to their presence. And I always found that really interesting. I'm like, what is that? What inherently is a warm presence? Like, what is that? I've come to see that we call it in actor talk, we call it a hit. A hit being are you the girl next door hit? Are you the seductress hit? Something that you just read on camera like that. The rebel, the misfit. You get these archetypes which don't describe your character. That's not who you are, but it's almost like first impression. And it's powerful for an actor to know that, only because you never have to play it. And you always know that the roles that are aligned to that archetype, you're probably going to have a pretty good chance of getting. And in my hit, what I've been told was this inherent innocence. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm like, I can't help the wide-eyedness and the bushy-tailed of who, like, my constructed identity as Jess, right? There is an innocence which I have come to see. It's been pointed out to me, and I know that I never have to play it. I know that it will read as a part of my presence. So both of those characters, there was something innocent, and innocence always carries with it, like, if you're starting from that point, you're wanting maturation. It's just implied, like it's an automatic thing. You're wanting this character to travel from A to B. There has to be a recognition. There has to be an acknowledgement. It's going to be a very big shift. So both for Rogue and for Motherland, I was given that. And I personally think that it's such a great arc to have, because you've got to go through the character being brutally awoken, like, oh shit, I thought the world was one thing, now it's another.
The rose-colored glasses.
The rose-colored glasses, and then you have to adapt. And that person's willingness to adapt, the character, how they adapt, could be slow, there could be a lot of resistance there, but ultimately their capacity to embrace change is going to be what is that evolution from within that Gloria Steinem talks about, like the girl becoming a woman, the woman waking the witch. Like those for me, those two lines are like synonymous, because you're speaking about power, you're speaking about maturation.
Well, I think that is, for an audience member to watch that character go through the character development throughout the seasons, or even through one season or a movie, just watching that touches people differently than if they stay the same. Like, it doesn't resonate as deeply as it could have if there isn't that form of change or that form of evolution within just the character, not necessarily the world around them, but how they themselves can view it.
Well, let me ask the floor this. I would love to know, would you guys think that, I mean, I have this conversation all the time. Do you believe that people change? Do you believe people can change? Because
all right, so why don't we open it? Who wants to raise their hand and give an answer to that? And oh, we got one. Okay. We got two.
No. Okay.
We got three. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to go with Chelsea and then Vicky, and we'll start from there, guys.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yay!
Yay!
Hello.
Hello.
A question as old as time. Yes, I do think that people can change. The problem is that I think people sometimes are unwilling to do the work that is necessary to change. So, snaps. Yeah, that's basically my take on it. Is I think it's totally possible, but you have to be willing to put in the effort and the time and the work to do those things and change, because I think too many people are comfortable in where they're at and don't want to face I guess like any of their previous baggage.
You bring I think you bring like the seminal word in there, that is comfort.
Yes.
Whenever we're talking about change, the fear that comes up, that surfaces, is what you would have to sacrifice. is the crystallization of what you're certain of, like who you think you are, right? Or who you think the world thinks you are. You've got to let go of that and die into the unknown and to evolve, right? And an ending, I love what really hit me about our show was when we're talking about endings in death. We're never talking about a full stop. We're talking about it like a doorway. We're talking about it like process, not product. It's never like you're going to arrive at a spot, and it's always a doorway through. What is Scylla's and Ray's thing when they're making out for the first time? The way through is
The way out is
The way
through.
out
The way
is
in is
in. The way out is in. Is that it?
yeah.
that
The
might
way
be
out.
it.
Yeah, the way out is
I think
in.
the way out. Something about like the way out is something not in, but it's through. I don't know. That to me, I remember writing in my first diary, because I do keep a diary when I'm going into character. I like to dream in character. I like to daydream. I like to scribble some absurd thoughts and really let my imagination run wild. That it's a conversation about, do things ever really end? And if it doesn't end, then what's implied is evolution. So we're meant to change, but our desperate need for certainty and comfort are always at the helm most of the time, right? Because that's like it gives an illusion of safety and control, and I think people love control and they like to feel safe, even if that's
And they like to be comfortable. You don't like
And
to be
change-
uncomfortable.
Change is uncomfortable most of the time.
Yes.
Change is uncomfortable. It's
Yes.
exactly the opposite of what people want. You want comfort and safety, and staying in your ways is comfortable and safe because it's what you know. Changing that is terrifying because it makes you have to reevaluate everything.
Yet
Exactly.
our contradiction is we love taking risks.
Yes.
And we don't like to be pigeonholed, and we don't like people to underestimate us, because there's a part of us, I really believe that there's a part of me in any case that like I feel unknowable to myself. I really feel it. I feel deeply connected to something that I cannot name, and I feel unknowable. Like I catch myself sometimes acting out of character. I'm going, oh, that's such a not a Jess thing to do. But then what is Jess? Like, what is that? And I do believe that whatever this conversation is, this like, do we believe that we change? Is evolution real or not? Can we defy our evolution, like, as well? Like, if we believe that we do not change, then okay, our habits remain our habits, and our habits form and our beliefs form our reality. So we are both our ceiling and our sky. Like we somehow co-create that. These were the conversations I was having with my co-stars going into season 3, because a lot of season 3's theme is on hope and faith and trust in what you can't see, and to know that you're really embracing change, whatever that is. You're going, I'll let die what I think I am to be reborn into what I need to become. Yeah. That, I don't know, it can be quite cerebral and dense and saturated, but these are my thought experiments that I love to go into. So Chelsea, like, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm like same page as you about the comfort, and whenever I'm wanting to stay safe, I always question that, because I'm going, the thing that I'm about to undertake, I clearly am scared of. And whenever I'm scared, I question, is this thing actually going to kill me? Or do I just feel like I'll die of humiliation, vulnerability, the fact that I have to go into something new, like whenever I create something, whether it's, you know, a poem or I'm taking on a new role, I feel the need to please, perfect, and perform. Very, very hard P's there. And the biggest P that is always there is play, and it never takes anything so seriously. It's always like, let's just experiment, and you know, and it makes me laugh that I can be so like, you know, fixed. and yet this thing wants to play and become, and it doesn't want any outlines to draw in, you know. I just wants to scribble and be a kid.
It doesn't want to be contained in a box. It wants to be out, which works.
No.
May I move us to have Vicky answer, and then we can go to some of the other questions?
Yes, please.
Unmute.
Hi,
Hello,
Vicky.
ladies. Thank you ever so much, Jess. It's lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
So I do a lot of work in psychology and psychodynamic psychotherapy, and a lot of my clients talk about change and how our world and our society just isn't conducive to change. So a lot of stuff that comes up in therapy is about setting boundaries for ourselves and others. But we live in a world that just constantly pushes up against those boundaries. And in the land of like motherland Fort Salem, at the end of it, they end up, you know, all witches. But a lot of people aren't going to like that change. And some people are going to like that change. So I guess the point about change is, I completely agree with what you guys said with Chelsea, is that change is a constant process. You really have to want it, be involved in it. And there's a trillion other facets to it. But the society that we live in makes it so difficult to continue to have positive change. You know, I feel like we need to change so many things about so many parts of the world that we live in. It makes it really difficult. I feel like I got very deep then, guys. I'm sorry.
No, it's so
No, it's great, Vicky.
You know, everything that you're saying really resonates with me, because I came to start questioning, like, so boundaries in the world, like where we begin and where another person ends, and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and what happens when we compromise ourselves, or when we don't.
We're constantly asked to. That's the issue. We're constantly asked to compromise ourselves. Whether it's a work day, will you do overtime? Whether it's, you know, oh, can I have your number? No. Or it's, you know, do you want to try this?
But you know what? That's I feel like, so life is going to be challenging, and really you can see that brushing up against you as something that shouldn't exist, or the fact that it does exist means that you have to develop a character. And this is, I actually, whenever I've really suffered in my life, like whether it's like you know, friendship betrayal, or I'm navigating some really like gray waters that feel really safe and stressful, and I don't know how to respond, and I want to react. Whenever that's happening in me, my instinct is to always like pull away, retract, and get quite resentful and hard and mean sometimes. Like I can get mean like that, and I'm what's happening is I'm like acting like an animal. I'm feeling threatened, and I go into my survival mentality. And while that serves me in one way, it also disserves me in another. And where it disserves me is in the space that Karina, my facilitator, whose work really has only facilitated me into seeing this, like how I can even hold such space in me, to be like, when I'm met with a challenge, or that feeling of like, I just want to clench like a fist around the situation that I'm in, whether it's conflict, whether it's discomfort, whatever it is, I have to pause, and I have to get still and breathe, and then somehow get to a point where I'm being conscious enough to respond rather than react. And I feel like what that has allowed me to see is the challenge is the opportunity. It's a mindset, like how you see things. And this is Tally, right? She's the freaking symbol of sight. How you choose to see things, that is probably the only thing that you can really control. Not how others see you, but how you see the world, how you see others. And so when your boss is asking you to work overtime and to compromise, right? To compromise your rest, or you're wanting a raise and you know that your value is like, I'm not being paid enough, and I'm understanding that what I'm actually becoming is a really resentful person. This environment is slowly becoming toxic because I don't feel respected by this person or whatever. This person is, I have come to see through Karina's tools that she's given me, and vocabulary is so important. Being able to express this is so important to understand where you are in yourself. She's always gone, this person is here to be a messenger. You have to mature in this way. And what that means is you go to the person who is asking more than they should, you go, no. And this is the reason why. I will not compromise my rest for this. Being able to speak our truth. And that doesn't have to be in an explosive way. That doesn't have to be like, well, fuck you, I'm walking away from this. This can come from such a place of integrity, of clarity. I think that's the word that possesses me when I'm acting from that place. It's not certainty. I'm not knowing if my boss is going to receive this with love and understanding. They could very well say, well, you're fired or whatever, right? But I'm very clear. I'm going, I cannot compromise this, and these are my reasons. I hope you understand, and you show up for yourself that way. That's, I think, really what sticking up for yourself is, and standing your ground of going, I will not accept this, and these are my reasons. You're not even coming in with fear, storm and fury there. So I find
you're just coming in with wanting and needing respect, and for people to match the boundaries that you yourself have to put up.
Right. And so, Vicky, I ask you, in terms of your clients, like, there's a certain level of going, okay, so the patterns in their life is like, I just want people to stop asking me this. So I wish that I could do this more, right? And I think what that is life's inviting you to step into a competency. I think we do not talk about that word enough, and it's not a sexy word. It's not like, oh yeah, it's not. It's not, because it looks like standing alone. It looks like picking yourself up off the floor when you want someone else to do it. And sometimes lying there until you have your temper tantrum and you allow yourself to be everything that you are, all the human, all the flawed, all, but you're conscious going, I know where I'm at right now. This moment is not my reality, right? This is just a moment. This is just my feeling. My feeling is not who I am, just like my thoughts are not who I am, and it will pass. And if I can see myself being in a tantrum or resenting that friend, and knowing that my resentment can be dangerous, and I can become a person that I don't like, and I don't want to be somebody I don't like. And where can I course correct? Because you can course correct. And what am I leaning into that's not helpful? And what could be more helpful? It's not so much that those people are going to stop chafing up against you. Life is going to throw you so much. Pain is so guaranteed. But coming from South Africa, what I've learned is that when you're not comfortable, what you cultivate is resilience. And that's, can I put a price on that? Because you can constantly going, I can adapt. Oh shit, this went wrong, cool. And when you're thinking that your environment needs to just be safe, life is not safe. So right. By that very mindset, are you helping or hurting yourself? Are you giving up your power when you say, that just life needs to be comfortable, that no conflict must be there? No, I don't think that that's realistic. I don't think that's the world that we're living in. So how you face, how you choose to stand in your strong. And so, I also used to cookie cutter things like, what does strength look like? What does leadership look like? I used to have like literally visuals for that. And I never thought myself as a strong person. Never saw myself as a leader until I started working with Karina and people like you, Vicky, who can really be lighthouses for people to facilitate whatever storm they're going through and go, we can always change and we can always become something better and truer, more beautiful, as John O'Donoghue says, which I love. Sorry to throw in a quote there.
No, it's fine. There are actually a whole bunch of questions that have to do with some books that you might recommend, which we can get to, but I did want to point out we only have 5 minutes left.
I'm heartbroken. I'm sorry. You guys have just like asked such beautiful questions, so thought-provoking.
Now it is up to you. We can continue until the 5 minutes. We can go down the line with some of the questions we still have remaining.
Sure.
All right. The next one up is going to be Cyber.
Hello.
I don't know if they have unmuted.
Hi. Great. So you were talking about character building earlier, and I don't know, maybe you probably touched a little bit on this just now, but I'm wondering if you could sit down and have a chat with Tally, a character you built. What would you talk about and why?
Knowing we only have 5 minutes left, but
yes.
I do want the answer.
I would just like to talk to her about how to stay open in a world that wants you to close, like that makes you feel so scared and so shaking. I constantly reach thresholds, like in every season and every day of every year of every hour that I'm alive. This is all a lot. Like being alive is a lot, and how to stay open. And I'd love to also talk about her enthusiasm and how she has never apologized for that, and just that stubborn delight and stubborn gladness that she has for life and people, and her belief in the goodness of people in the face of like cynicism, which, in my life, in my upbringing, I was cut down. I apologized a lot, and I learned to ask for permission when I never should have placed that kind of power in another person's hands. I should have always led from that, giving myself permission to be all I am. But I'm very grateful for the wound that I had, because I had to grow into healing that. And part of my healing was Tally. So just really having a great chat over a coffee or a cup of tea about reparenting yourself and leadership. And yeah. And I love the question. I mean, it implies that I created Tally. I guess I've endowed a lot of myself in her, but so much of who she is on page and written and created by the writers and Elliot. And I really felt just so privileged to give whatever I could to make her come alive. She was someone else's dream, though, for sure. So yeah, she's not mine. She's actually more of your guys's, to be honest. Like, she's the audience's at this point. I bet you guys all see a very different Tally. And it's interesting how art does that. It becomes very personal. And somebody who was involved in the process of making it, it becomes less personal for me. It's so strange. Now that I'm sitting in an audience seat, it's like the opposite. And I will say this is probably an exception, because most of, other projects that I've been in, I've not been able to assume the audience seat and watch my work without criticizing it. Like, I cannot see my face without going, oh, cringe, cringe, cringe. I get pulled out of the story because of my insecurity of my performance, you know. In the case of Motherland, I'm so in rapture of like the whole story. I'm just like, oh. that I forget the inner critic and I just drop into something else. So yeah.
That actually leads kind of well into a quick question we had from I Can Be Sane.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of goes just a slightly pivot from Motherland lore, which we would love to talk about a little bit more if you're willing.
Yeah.
I Can Be Sane, are you still here? I don't know if they're here. Let me check. Yep, here we go. You just have to unmute. There you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is regarding hypothetical future roles. If you were given the opportunity to play another supernatural being other than a witch, what kind of role would you want to tackle and why?
Oh.
As a fellow nerd, I thought you might like this one.
Love that one. An elf. I would love to play an elf. I would also love to I don't know, there's something about an interview with a vampire with Brad Pitt and Tom that I kind of love, that Tom Cruise, that really resonated with me. I always thought that the way that they portrayed vampires, I was like, because I know, like, depending on which world, right? I want to be an elf in Lord of the Rings, but I want to be a vampire and interview with a vampire. I want to hear that from probably like a female point of view and just have like a spin-off of that. That would be really cool.
That would be.
Renee.
Okay. I'm sure someone is now going to be writing that fan fiction, just so you're aware. It's gonna happen now. That's it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And also, I just really want to play a detective. I would love to play a detective. I mean, I was saying this to Lynn, because we both are fans of the X-Files, and yeah, just want like a revive of that whole show and just cast us, please. Like a two-hander female detective. Yeah, I know that doesn't count with a supernatural, but I do think
why wouldn't it? They have shows where there are supernaturals.
Well, X-Files also imply, you know, there is some, you know,
extraterrestrials
stuff going down. So maybe that, yeah, I can sneak that one in as well.
Well, for other fandom nerds, there was also Warehouse 13, where there was a whole bunch of just magic with historical items where you had two detectives working together. But that's like the worst summary I've ever given for that show before, though. So
I would also love to play, like, I'd love to be a voice. I mean, my voice is probably a lot more need of training, but I'd always love to be a voice of like a video game. Now that I'm playing Magic the Gathering, I've also like, I'm just like in awe of the cards and the arts, and just feeling like, man, like what would it be like? And this has also been so much of my journey with Tally, stepping into voices and new bodies and new ways of. I had my first physical performance training in clown work, and I was trained by this amazing guy named Shaka September, and we were doing mask work, and it was so freeing. Like, I've never felt so free behind that mask. You can really, it is kind of like a possession when you're going into such an intense play. And I always wanted to find ways of giving myself that. I'm not the kind of actor who I think will be content much in just being a talking head on a screen. Okay. I want more of the challenge. I'm like the Andy Serkis, the nitty gritty. Give me all of the stuff that challenges my mind, body, soul, all of it. And definitely coming off of Motherland, I start realizing how much I didn't own my voice. And now I just am going, I'm playing catch up with all of that. I'm going, let's do singing lessons, let's do accent training, let's lean into all of that. You know, voices are so important.
Well, kind of leaning somewhere from that, like
Yeah.
in Motherland and Stunts in particular, we had a question about that from, please forgive me, I'm going to say your name wrong, so I'm just going to see if I can find you, and then you can say it yourself. I'm not finding them here. Goodness gracious. I'm gonna just try, and everyone can berate me later. Alina Yashi. And I'm not sure if they're still here. If you are, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. No. All right, I can give you 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to ask the question. All right. The question is, which stunt sequence was your favorite to perform in the entire series?
Huh.
And I found out it's Alina says hi, so I just read that
Hi.
all wrong, but
favorite stunt sequence. It wasn't on Motherland. It was on Rogue.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was on Rogue, and it was that oneer where I'm running through the house being chased by these guys who are coming to, they're like the sex traffickers, right? And we had to do it in one take. And MJ wanted me to run into the house, run through, see a guy, backtrack to, then the timing had to be so on point. And there was just a shadow of a person walking through the door for me to back into another room. All the time, the DP and the camera op are like right on my 6. And it was just like cat and mouse. It was so intense and it was so satisfying. So that off the top of my head, that's probably the most like from a stunt point of view. But I worked really, really hard in my preparation for the fight sequence with Abby in season 1, episode 1, where we're on the mat and we're circling each other and she takes me down. And every time I fell, that was all me, baby. That was all me. And then with Lynn and Ep 9, I mean, I think that probably was also a huge, I was terrified of that. Huh. But I did have my amazing stunt double who we were sparring with, and Jen was doing all of the stuff that I just didn't want to risk the injury. Of course, the irony is that even with the sparring, and I was just kind of being inserted into the actable close-up moments, I got hurt anyway. I pulled my hip ligament because we had a dance train to kind of shake off the day. Tay put some music on and there was like 50 extras, and it was a really intense 3 days of basically just taking Lynn Renee on. And we were just so finished at the end of it that we had to dance it out. And then that dance train, my hip rolled and my ligament tore, and I was in a wheelchair. No. I was in a wheelchair for the last 2 weeks of Motherland season 2. Fantastic. So, but I was really proud of that sequence. But there was so much more. I was almost not focused on the stunt work in Ep 9, and I know that sounds weird because Jen was taking a lot of the heavy weight for that. Okay. Lynn and I had learned to delegate because at that point, the most important was the performance. There was so much talk in between. It wasn't just a fight sequence. It was like fight, chat, 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 fight, chat, fight. You know, it was like that. And then the mother tongue was probably the most terrifying thing. And then I remember David Frissie, our director, going, I want you to imagine you're speaking to 5,000 people. We're going to only have like 50 extras on the day because of COVID, but you got to imagine like an amphitheater of people, and it's the Gladiator, and it's like, are you not entertained? You know, I just remember going, this is freaking intense. And I think you can hear it, like as I'm in one of, they took a whole bunch of different takes in the final edit, but you can hear actually my voice is going, it's very raspy. And so I started to lose my voice at the end there, which fed the emotion of the scene. But yeah, from a technical point of view, I should have diaphragmatically breathed into my belly to save my vocal cords all the work and strain.
I'll pretend I understand what that means.
Actors talk. You see, actors talk. It's just, as my first ever acting coach said, she says, how you should breathe is through your poop hole. And literally I was like, what? And she's like, yes, you got to breathe deep. You got to breathe down into your stomach. A lot of women are taught to hold in, cross your legs and suck in your stomach, and everything is tight, that we breathe into our clavicles, clavicular breathing, I think that's what it's called. And,
okay.
it actually raises the pitch of our voice, and it makes it sound like really like pleasing and sweet. And, you know, it's so interesting how we hold shame in the body as well, even if that's passed down, like from a shame point of view, that a lot of my unlearning has had to be in how to breathe right. Like, I don't know how, but somehow I was breathing like I was still wearing the ancestral corset. Like, we think we're uncorseted as women, and yet we still maintain this idea of sucking stomach, cross legs, you know, be like tight. And so much of acting is about relaxation. It's about soft and breathing, allowing your breath to be into your stomach, and for your stomach to hang out and soften is also how you will get the deepness of your voice, which isn't what most women, you don't want to step into that, because that feels like, oh, you know, as just, I mean, me being in like my power, my masculine. But it's very powerful to be able to shift register, and it's very important to not breathe up here, because you can really hurt your voice. And you know, 18-hour days and you're shouting, you have to learn how to shout to support yourself. So how amazing is that? Like, even from a technical point of view, it's all about, don't give your power up. If you do hurt your instrument, you've got to claim it, and it's not going to look pretty. And I remember when we were in New York, first day and only day of our actual press tour, seeing the poster of the three of us screaming, and there was such a moment for me, like, oh my gosh. Well, I mean, of course we're in Times Square, and every actor's dream is to, you know, see the billboards and stuff. But for me, also looking at the poster of just, it wasn't pretty. You have these women who are just like furious.
They're yelling.
And I love that. I love that the studio wanted that to be the poster. Our fucking mouths baring our teeth. They could have done like a total posed, you know, let's still serve strong as like pouty and sexy. Let's not serve it like raw and furious. And I just love that. That for me will always stick in my mind.
Well, many know that I live in New York, so I happened to see that. And I was fascinated by the show enough because they were airing some interesting promos originally for season 1, which certainly caught my attention, even though they explained absolutely nothing within them. Absolutely nothing was explained in the entire promo. It's just like, okay, there are all these women and they look like they're in the army and they have powers. Okay, I'm in. Why not? But just to segue from that about acting, we have a question from Novolite that I think you might be happy to answer.
I am. Shoot.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Hi, Nova.
Hi. Hello. I feel that every actor and actress has experienced something that drove them into the acting/film business. As somebody who is trying to reach that goal, I was curious as to what was it that drove you to become an actress?
I think it was, it's hard to pinpoint, but I do think that the first time that I was ever really seen as a kid was when I was either doing a play with my brother for my parents, and we were just dressing around and mucking about, and school presentation. There was an oral presentation that I did on the African elephant oral, and I remember my teacher at the time, taking me aside and was like, "You're amazing at this." And I had never been told that I was good at anything. I was really dyslexic. I was really a frustrated kid. I never thought that people were really seeing me. I felt very invisible and very silent, like unheard. Like I had no access to vocabulary and self-expression. And it started to, I think, as an act of desperation, art became that channel where I tried to express myself out of just wanting to be seen. And I never thought that it would lead to where I am now. I mean, film very much was at that point, that also the industry in South Africa was growing. So it was a combination of also just right time, right people. But the initial catalyst, I think, was just the desire somehow, and it's weird, right? Like you're stepping into somebody else's skin as a character, you're playing, there's a certain level of pretense, but it feels very much, it always felt very true. I wasn't pretending. I felt really sincere in my pursuit of putting on whatever story that I was telling. I was taking my audience in on a ride, So I don't know, I felt like somehow more me. I was seen to be me when I was somebody else. It's weird to put in that way, but yeah, I think that was the initial bug that bit. And but I will say to somebody who's aspiring, it really starts with you just permitting yourself to call yourself an artist, like having that entitlement. And I use entitlement in the best way. The way that Liz Gilbert uses in Big Magic, she always says you have to have the entitlement to stake your claim and go, I am an artist. And I'm an artist because I say I am. You're not waiting for the world to pull up a chair for you. You're at the table. And there's a self-appointed audacity that you have to have. And I think I had that as a kid, but I think it grew from a wound. So it made acting quite a hectic thing for me. There was so many points in my career where I was just like, why am I doing this? I'm like the worst person for this job. Like I feel so shy, or I feel so insecure. And again, coming back to the thing, like when you're seeing challenges and opportunity to grow into something more beautiful and more competent, I think my acting has also parented me into becoming who I am today. So it was a quest for self-discovery and self-actualization, I guess. Long-winded question, but thank you for such a thought-provoking question.
Well, thank you for, and I guess the world and in general for pushing that into your life and into your path, because that brought you here. And I don't think any of us could imagine someone else playing Tally Craven in the way that you have and done.
Not
so.
The way, no one can play her, and that's the thing, no one can play her like I played her.
No.
And it took me so long to understand what power that is as well, you know. And that's the reason why artists do not have to be competitive with each other, because no one can bring what you're going to bring. And I always felt really triggered by this feeling of, like, you know, really wanting to trust and rely on a community of artists, right? Like, I'm seeing this beautiful community embraced around this show, that's pouring into the fundraiser, that's you know, finding its own back channels, and it's become its own life support. This is the best way. This is the world that I want to live in as an artist. I don't want to be insular. We are stronger together. And if we can get over the fact that we're never going to bring what each other can bring, but we're stronger together, I mean, what we can build are, it's like worlds and worlds and worlds better than when we're trying to operate from the point of scarcity, that there's just not enough to go around, and it's just a freaking dog on dog competitive industry. I hear so many times people go, man, you know, showbiz, it is so dog on dog. And I'm just like, yeah, but also that's not how I choose to see it. And if I did, I know for a fact I would not stay in it. It would just be too hellish for me. It would be, so part of also finding my co-stars, you know, finding the healing that came with working with Tay and Ash and Demetria and Lynn and Amalia, it was about forming the community that I'd always dreamed of. And that's the thing, it's actually on us to co-create it together. You get to choose. It's not like you walk into a room and the room just is what it is. You have such an impact and such an influence over creating your world that you have no idea the impact that you can have on one person, let alone like the atmosphere and the vibe. You know, vibes, we talk about it so casually, like, yeah, this party's a vibe, or this party's not a vibe, because we're energy, we pick up on energy. But we can really have so much say in it if we accept like ownership and accountability for it. So if anything, this community has just reinforced in me the sense of like, this is why I'm an artist, this is why I'm a collaborator, to collaborate with you guys, even if it's just having a conversation. This is what's meaningful for my life. This is where I find the most purpose, is having conversation and collaborating and creating something from nothing. It doesn't matter what that something is, and it doesn't matter how the rest of the world takes it or receives it. It's
the act of creating itself.
Yeah. And there's too many people that I've met in this community as well, whether it's an artist telling me that they fell in love or fell out of confidence or trust with themselves and their own creative ability, that they have now found a rebirth and a resurgence just through the artist community that they found around the show. And or it's just the fact that they felt incredibly lonely and isolated and just despairing in the world or wherever they found themselves, that then being embraced by a community that was so positive, supportive, loving, accepting, felt like coming home. It felt like a belonging. And I think our longing to belong is so pinnacle in us that when we find it, it's just like, wow, okay, I guess this is what it's all for. This is what it's all about. This is the meaning of life, which is the unity, right? That's our whole show. I just love it. Like, we're talking about life, but there's so many parallels to the show.
Yes, and I think all of us have appreciated you being so open and honest and vulnerable with us in some of these answers. But we have reached well beyond the scheduled time.
I could talk to you guys forever. This has been awesome, and we got to do it again.
We would love to have you back again, and next time maybe we can do it where some people can come on camera and ask some questions with you, and then, you know, have them speak directly to you. I know that there are so many things that people would want to say to you in thanks, particularly for your work and acceptance and promotion of Talder. I mean, this is the Talder Discord, so I'm going to say it, and I'll say it again. I know I started it off by saying thank you, but you have allowed for us to have a form of representation in a way that we've not had before, where a non-canon
That's awesome.
where a non-canon ship is supported and promoted and loved by the actresses themselves. It is practically unheard of for us who have been in various fandoms before, like myself and many others. And just thank you from like the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for being there for us, and know that we will be there to support you moving forward anywhere you might go, because we will follow you anywhere.
Well, look, Lynn and I have a lot of things that we want to create together, and I think we just want to reiterate and say thank you for seeing us, because I don't know if it would have been the same thing had we not liked each other as people or had gotten on in the rock. You know, you never know. When you get a role, there's no guarantee, and you're just getting along with everyone. Motherland has been such an exceptional experience, and we get told this so often, like how exceptional it is, that everyone loves each other, that everyone likes each other, that there's just instant respect and admiration. It does not happen that way. Sad but true is what I've been told. Again, Motherland was my first series, so I have nothing to compare it to. So I was really taking on what Lynn and Demetria had to say, given their perspective and time in the industry. And I was really grateful for that keyhole of insight. And to find somebody like Lynn, out of all of the people, all the actors in the world, it felt fated. So yeah, I think you guys picking up on our chemistry is just, it just added to how exceptional this all felt. And I'm just so glad that I smooched that woman behind the scenes. It was an idea that I said to her, like pretty much after the ice cave, they didn't allow us to kiss. I was like, okay, well, then this is gonna be off screen, you know. And how the two of us feel about each other is just, yeah, I mean, it's all telling, and how we just lean into that, because yeah, it's exceptional, our relationship. So we wanted to give you guys something, and I'm just so happy that we just did it. We grabbed the moment, because I think had we planned it any more than we did, we probably would have gotten in our own way, and you know, and felt about it. But I just love that we just threw it in there.
You just went for it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I think just about a majority of the Talder Discord does not blame you for wanting to actually kiss Lynn Renee at all.
I mean, right? Right? Yeah. I mean, she's got that draw to her. I was, yeah. She is so attractive and so beautiful. She has that beauty that just emanates in and out. And just a force to work opposite. But one of the people who've really seen me, and so it, you know, our relationship is one of intimacy, and intensity, and yeah, as an artist, she just makes me better, and as a person, she just makes me feel visible. So, in deep honor of Lynn Renee, the force, the woman, the witch. Thank you, goddess. Thank you, universe. And may we all like just find people who are like, you know, what she's been for me. I really want every person to find that person for them, that can be like a lighthouse and can help them be more beautiful, freer, truer, authentic, discerning, whatever it is that you need to conjure. It helps to see somebody who has gone miles, and whether they walk in different shoes, come from a different corner of the earth, it doesn't matter. It's just like, if you have one example to look to, I think you have a pretty good horizon. So yeah, she's kind of been a horizon for me. And I love that the sun and moon is just like, can I just say, because I think I tweeted that quite not carelessly, but I was in the stream of while we were tweeting, you know how Twitter just takes you, and we were just in the flow. But thinking back to it, it's really a lot of our conversations between Lynn and I have been about the feminine and the masculine and how we are both, and how those were kind of uncovered in both of the characters of Tally and Sarah. But I do, you know what I also regret is like not being able to call her Sarah. There were so many comments about can Tally Sarah.
Sorry.
I wanted it so badly. In fact, the scene that I was pitching it for was the ice cave. I'm like, okay, if you don't give me the kiss, then we call her Sarah. But then there was like the whole thing of, well, she's not really older, she's a mother, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay.
Right, but did Tally know that? Because either way, Tally calling her Sarah,
right? She's still seeing her wife's face, like she's still seeing the. Yeah, I don't know, and like again, Alder was always just saying like trust the mother. She wasn't going to trust me. She wasn't.
Right. There was some disconnect. I mean, there were a lot of discussions within Talder Discord in particular about how much of Sarah was still, or Alder was still Alder, and how much was the mother. And there seemed to be moments where it was one and then it was the other. And it just, I mean, it certainly really freaked me out every time she said the mother, and we had a drinking game where we were just like, let's just take a shot every time she says it.
Okay, but guys, can we talk about, you see this conversation content? I don't.
I guess not.
I don't want to let you go. There's so much to talk about, and in particular, I think Lynn and I really wanted to talk about the mentorship from a point of view of like what that nuanced relationship is. Like we don't often see archetypes of the female mentor, and that was
exactly
huge for us. And like if I think about the show as a whole, like I'm stepping out of the actor and the artist, right? I'm going into just the storyteller, and we have these characters who serve as archetypes. You know, we've got the rebel. Raelle for me has always been like a major thread point, like what she has to go through as a character, where we're seeing the cynic, we're seeing somebody who's been really hurt. She's got so much fucking rage and so much pain. She's got the furthest to go,
right?
You know, she's got the furthest to go, and we really, you know, as much as everyone would say this, like we are an ensemble show, there are 6 leads. I would even say there are more, but there's, you know, we've got a room full of very loud voices within this one world, and we're all serving different purposes, bringing and talking about humanity. But I always think the distilling point is Ray, and a huge factor of that is her relationship with Scylla. I love that. I love their relationship so much, because you've got, you know, this seemingly unforgivable character who also betrays her, accidentally kind of falls for her, who's got her own pain and trauma and anger, right? And they have so much in common, and they are each other's mirrors. And I can't get away from the fact that we keep falling in love with the mirror.
Right. And now you've referred to Alder and Tally as mirrors, and being able to see that, and the show itself just seems to play within that a lot.
And what it comes down to, and this thing is maybe not spoken about enough in our show, I think, is we speak a lot about female empowerment. And again, I just want to take the female out of that, because for a second, again, if we point to it, it's like it becomes like mute, right? I don't want that to be. I want it to be like we're talking about how beautiful it is to see human beings portrayed on screens that happen to be female. In my life, I don't know any weak-willed women. I know questionable women. You know, I definitely know 3-dimensional women. I don't see a lot of them portrayed in films, like women not as an archetype, not as a caricature, cameo, not functionary. I want them to be human, fully formed.
Right. It
but
becomes like difficult when you have to say, oh,
it
like that strong woman, like, but why does that have to be?
And you know, maybe it's a packaging and it's like Hollywood, and I don't know, maybe it's digestible. I don't know what it is, but I am so leaning more into that. When I read a script where this character is a human being, I go, awesome. I'm not even thinking, oh, is she a strong female? Like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I don't know what that is, because strength can look like different things. And yeah, but the one theme that I also find is so we don't talk about enough is forgiveness. We talk about so much revenge. There's lots of content around revenge, getting even and just, right? But forgiveness, I see that as being like the epitome of reality, and that love, and that once you forgive, you release yourself and the other. It's like it's a double-edged sword, that, but the best
If you
kind
don't, right?
But the best kind of, you know. And I feel like it's also mirrored in Tally and Alder's relationship.
You can even see that mirrored in Anacostia and Alder's relationship as well.
Yeah,
between the seasons.
Yes, the forgiveness and how that allows us to move on.
And
Like,
maybe even with Nicta and Alder, particularly towards the end. I mean, granted that
it's huge, you know. And I mean, I know that Elliot he knew that he was going to redeem Scylla, but I think, you know, he had built that character to be so vengeful that it was questionable. It was like, oh shit, you know, how is Ray coming from her abandonment issue, the fact that her mother also had lied to her, kept so much a secret, and all of that, like, how is she going now? She was met with this partner who she totally fallen for, and is she totally going to close off now? Is this going to be the thing that just breaks her
or turns her? I mean, I always thought that could have been an interesting dynamic as well.
Or turns her. I mean, of course, right? Like, she had all the anger and the resentment towards the army for taking her mother. There was no lack of that. And the fact that Scylla didn't turn her, now that for me was our way home for Scylla, because I think that redemption became obvious, that this love that she had for Ray was so pure and so probably surprising to herself, was her vulnerability and her way home. Like, they were just walking each other home. That's how it felt. That's how it looked to me.
Right.
And I think that's what we're all doing. We're all just walking each other home. So yeah, when I finally got to say those words to Lynn in the ice cave, that really felt like that moment where, you know, we were at the front door, or under the mistletoe. I just know that there was, it's yeah, I mean, look, I'm a romantic at heart, so I'm always wanting the happy endings. But I do find what beats a happy ending is characters who reach forgiveness. Because that feels like a really hard thing to earn, but when you do, you heal trust. And is that just not the golden ticket for love? You know, it doesn't matter about the wedding or the babies at the end, and the rainbow. It all just becomes about, like, I see you. And I love that also about Tally and her mom, May. Finally, just these two women who just refused to see each other, and yet they both wanted and tried to pursue the same thing, like protecting each other as if they could ever, you know, when all they wanted was total acknowledgement that they were to be respected. Like, you know, they're living and choosing what they're choosing, and they're competent and capable, and stubborn. And it made for, you know, all that to be quite humorous and really tender. After so much exasperation and so much resistance, it just felt so good to sit with Gillian in that moment of going like, we're so seeing each other and honoring each other. And that was the forehead. And I always thought the forehead became Lynn and our kiss. It became the kiss of honor. Because a lot of Tally's, you know, if we're talking about the bittiness of the reverence, and reverence, such a beautiful old-fashioned word, right? Of that just awful respect. It's like rapture. And there's something also quite childlike about the forehead kiss. There's like a bit of motherliness in it, but more so just that deep honoring of like, I see you, you know. And that started with Lynn putting her forehead to me when I became a biddy, and I say it was my honor, and she calls me her daughter. Yeah, it's a very complicated canon.
It certainly is, but I mean, we wouldn't be here talking you wouldn't be here talking at the Talder Discord if it wasn't complicated and we all didn't love the complication.
No. Can I pitch that the poetic, what we fall in love with these two characters is, and what Lynn and I have fallen in love with is being able to fall in love with the woman that you can become, the moreness, the more beautiful, the empowerment. When you step into your power, I think they become a weird archetype for not needing another, but for being whole in yourself, and for really recognizing, seeing it. So it comes back to what's wrong with being single, right? And how you can hold somebody, you can hold them, but you can let them free. So maybe that's the ultimate thing. Like maybe that's the ultimate thing that we're actually wedded to, is the relationship to self, and to self-actualization and maturity, and to finding our, I'm gonna say it, like our inner goddess. Like we're, you know, when they call you a goddess, make sure you live up to it. That feeling of living up to your greatest self, your most goddess-like self. And I think when you see Tally and Alder and these two characters, you've like really gone like miles and miles of growth and shape-shifting and all of this to come back full circle does feel like a lifetime and a union. I don't know, but it's definitely one that's more implicit than explicit, and we are so taking ownership in that, and proudly so.
Well, we're all proud too, but unfortunately we do have to say goodbye.
We have to say goodbye.
We have to say goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
We would love to have you back. So if that is something that you are still interested in, please be sure to let us know and we can work that out. And you are now, yes.
That would be freaking awesome.
If a Talder Discord could, if the Talder Discord could have a Talder Q&A, that would, I don't think that we would survive, but we'd handle it.
Happy ending. True. That would be our ending. That will be our wedding. Everyone present.
I mean, you'd break the internet, but that's fine. It's totally fine. We're here for it. We are all here for it.
I love this. Thank you guys so much for facilitating and just being this community that we can fall into, having these conversations of complexity and compassion, and I feel really lucky. Thank you.
And we feel lucky as well. So I wanted to say thank you for everyone who has attended. We're going to say officially goodbye.
Thank you.
All right. And Jess, you're probably going to get a notification. I just need you to click on it.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much for everyone. I apologize. We're unable to get to all of the questions, but we now have hopefully another opportunity to bring her back and get to some more of them. Have a good night or day, everyone. Thank you again.